Belanti starts off his book in a narrative style, describing how he was teased as a child because of his deafness. Partially in order to escape this teasing, he took on a superhero persona and daydreamed his way through much of school. Because he was mainstreamed, Belanti used only English and lip reading to communicate, and he didn't learn any sign until much later in his life. He described an experience he had in elementary school when a young deaf boy tried to sign with him, and Belanti was confused. Eventually he tried to sign back, but then a teacher slapped the children's hands and punished them because they weren't supposed to be signing in school, only speaking English. Belanti often alludes back to this childhood experience as the first time that he was aware of the control that hearing adults around him wanted to assert over his deafness and his self-expression. He effectively illustrates this point by referring to the, quote, evil empire of the hearing culture, which colonizes deaf culture. He talks about this colonization through both anecdotes and through references to theorists like Foucault. One such anecdote is his experience of getting tested for a hearing aid. Belanti describes being alone in a room with a metal apparatus strapped to his forehead, which buzzed and zapped him. He ends up jumping off the table, punching a doctor, and running into the woods to escape. In the following chapters, Belanti describes this experience of being punished from being different from the norm. He calls it a subaltern and says that it results of a valuing of hearing over deafness. By attempting to force him to use a hearing aid, the doctors were asserting a medical model sort of control over his deafness. It is in this way that Belanti so effectively mixes both his own personal experiences with a critical viewpoint through the lens of disability and deaf studies. Belanti begins to rebel against this oppression of himself and his deafness at his IEP meetings. Belanti, the deaf theorist, takes on a more theoretical approach to this resistance. He discusses how using words can be a resistance to the oppressive dominant culture. He explains how redefining words that were traditionally used by the dominant group to oppress deaf people can then help deaf people to assert their own power. In this case, Belanti reclaimed the words of deaf and dumb in the title of his book, not to buy into typical notions of deficit hearing people ascribe to deaf people, but to reclaim those words for deaf pride. Belanti concludes his book with a current update on his life as an adult and his journey into deafhood. He is now an assistant professor at Florida State. He takes a week-long trip to visit some deaf friends and fully immerses himself in ASL so he can better understand and become a part of deaf culture. Belanti also explains that he now sees himself as not having a deficit from his deafness, but as being a superhero whose special power is to critically analyze the treatment of deaf children in schools and study the oppression of the deaf by the hearing culture. Belanti vows to take on more of a deaf cultural approach now that he has a better understanding of what that means.